So in this scene, you'll see that I'm taking my own stencils and I am tracing them around the white paper plane. So I'm trying to get a variety here, and I'm trying to create some kind of pattern. So in my mind, I'm kind of trying to plan out where I'm going to put those other stencils, how they're going to work off of each other, and how it might look together. So I'm kind of spreading them out randomly on purpose. And here I'm putting my other stencil, so I'm starting to create that sense of difference, of variety, which is more interesting. And now I'm throwing in the bat stencil as well. And now I'm putting in all the inner detail, the detail I could not get within my stencil. So I'm drawing the spines on the cactuses. I'm going to draw the leaves on the agave. And I'm doing this all freehand. And of course, I'm not really working that fast. It's all time-lapsed. And you can see on my stencil, that's all the detail that I'm planning to put onto the agave leaves. And here's a finished piece. So there is a little bit of an issue when you start to plan where you're going to make your cuts. And you can see that if you look, there's a lot of designs that are circular, that the shapes are all connected. You'll need to keep in mind that you cannot cut out the entire shape. You actually have to leave a gap in between things, so in between the leaves. Even on the circle, it cannot be a full circle or you'll cut the circle out completely. So what it's going to end up looking like is more like dotted lines. You're cutting a dotted line almost. You're not cutting out the entire shape, or you'll remove like a lot of the detail and a lot of the 3D element to this. So you're going to be very careful that you don't accidentally cut out the whole shape here. And you can see I'm taking my eraser. I'm actually erasing this to kind of give my mind like a heads up. Don't cut out that whole shape or you're going to lose the shape. So I'm starting to do that. You can just keep track of it in your own head, which is kind of what I did for most of this. I just reminded myself you cannot cut out the whole thing as one long shape. It has to be broken into little sections so that you're not cutting out the whole shape of the flower, you're just cutting out individual petals. Okay, so these are the rules for handling the X-Acto knives. So the X-Acto knife is a really great tool. It's a wonderful tool, but it is super sharp. It's so sharp it can cut right through skin and especially fingers. So you want to be very careful when you're handling it. And there's a couple of things you have to keep in mind when you're holding one. So the first thing you need is to always have some type of cutting mat. So the cutting mats look like this. They come in a variety of different colors, but they're all about the same size. So it doesn't matter if your paper is rotated or if you're using a larger paper, make sure that that cutting mat is always under your paper where you're making that cut. You also want to make sure that when you're not using the blade, you always keep the clear cap on. That cap protects it from hurting you, from slicing a neighbor. So when you're not using it, it just goes to one side with the cap on. You do want to make sure that the blade is tight. So these things kind of have a screw on top. So if the blade is feeling loose, check that handle. So you twist it to the right, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, because here I'm demonstrating how the blade can be pulled right from there. And that's how you replace your blade. So if your blade is feeling dull, you can let me know and we'll pull out that one blade and we'll replace it with a brand new blade. So you always want to tighten that blade before you actually use it. Make sure it's tight so it doesn't fall out while you're using it. You kind of want to hold it similar to a pencil. You're exerting some pressure enough to cut through the paper. You can actually feel how deep you're cutting through your fingertips. You can feel that. So you don't want to slice too hard through that cutting mat. You just want to slice just enough to cut through the paper. You also do not want to aim it up at yourself or at a neighbor. You're aiming it down towards the paper, not at anybody else. You always want to be cautious. You want to be focused, be alert. Do not handle it if you're having an off day and you feel like, oh my God, I can't do this without wiggling. So you want to make careful, slow, steady cuts. You're not trying to do something fast. And your job is essentially to cut out negative space. So that's what a chunk remove looks like. And remember, you're not going to be cutting out a full shape here. These are going to look more like broken lines. So this is the cactus I'm working on right now. It's going to look like a broken line that's a long broken line. So each segment's pretty long. And you're poking it up. I use the tip to kind of pry it up. Watch your fingers though that you don't grab too soon, because you'll grab the blade and that's a big ouchie. And if you notice, my hand, the hand that's not cutting, is shaped kind of like an L. That's to steady the page. But I'm always conscious of where my hand is when I'm making a cut. So here I'm finishing up the circle, pulling out the last of the negative space that's there. And that's what it looks like from the back if I were to flip it over to the clean side. So now I got to go to all those little inner details. So I'm going to that flower first. And again, I'm going to make sure that I don't cut out the whole flower, because then you'll have a flower-shaped hole. You're actually going to cut out the petals individually, make sure they're still anchored to the white of the paper so they don't come free. And that's kind of a laborious process. So this is time consuming. Go slow and be patient. And now I'm starting to lift up those spikes. So those spikes are already cut, and now I'm poking those spikes. I'm trying to get those spikes to flex so that way I can poke them through on the other side. And again, this is time consuming, but the end result will be cool. So you're making sure that they fold. You're checking the fold. You're using that point to flip that fold up. And of course, I'm going to flip the paper over ultimately so that we're working on the white side. So I'll just poke those spikes through to the other side. And that's kind of what it looks like from the back side. But I still have more cuts to do, so I'm going to be focusing on those cuts. Again, make sure you don't cut out the whole shape, you're just cutting out little sections. So here's the fun stuff. This is where you get to pop up everything you cut out. Should be at the very end once you have everything cut, but now you get to actually fold it up and flip it up to kind of create that 3D relief part of this. So right now I'm pressing in all my folds. I'm being careful. I'm very cautious with where I put my fingertip in relationship to that knife blade. You need to be careful too. And I'm actually probing with that X-Acto knife really gently. I'm not exerting a lot of pressure on it. That way I'm not going to accidentally slip and gouge myself with that knife. So this part's really kind of fun because you're watching your picture take shape. And you just want to make sure that they're all folded correctly. The back wings are going to be folded up too. And that's where the negative space really works nicely against the positive there. And now I'm working on that agave. So I'm not going to pop them all out for you. I'm just showing you the 3 different stencils I created. So the agave turned out more like a sunshine, but that's okay. It's fun to make. So that's what it looks like on the reverse side, the side with all the pencil marks, and here's what it looks like on the cleaner side. And that's pretty much it.